Welcome everybody to our first live Alludo webinar series. We're excited to kick off the series. It's not only bringing together the educators, the panelists that are talking with us, but also the participants in the audience. And so we're excited to have this opportunity to collaborate. A lot of us are working remotely, virtually, not having that opportunity to gather together. So I'm excited that we're able to bring everybody together in this type of forum. So I'd like to start off first with introducing our panelists. I'm going to start with Ray. So Ray Dunn is the coordinator of secondary education in Verde Unified School District. She's in her 24th year of education. I think she's lying because she's not that old. In her 15 years as a classroom educator, she's taught every grade level of high school ELA, every type of student, served as a new teacher coach, department chair, literacy coach, and instructional coach. And in 2011, she moved into the role she's in now, which is secondary coordinator. And she works with all secondary teachers in order to impact students. And her passion is student success. She's always pushing the boundaries for access, equity, and academic excellence. So thank you, Ray, for joining us. Yeah, also with Verde is Jessica Warren, and Jessica is currently the coordinator of elementary education. She's been in education for 15 years and worked with Verde the entire time. She served as both elementary teacher, teaching second and third grade, and then also as an instructional coach at the elementary and middle school level. In 2019, she moved into the coordinator role that she's in today and facilitated and participated in multiple leadership teams for the district within the areas of equity, literacy, and MTSS. She's passionate about ensuring all teachers have the capacity to support high levels of learning for all. So thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.
Last but not least, we have Dave. Dave Doubravsky is the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services at Harupa Unified School District. Dave has served for 28 years at Harupa. Is that right, Dave?
That's right.
Amazing. So starting out as an elementary school teacher, and then Dave moved into a leadership role. So first as a middle school assistant principal, then elementary principal, and then becoming the director of administrative services. And Dave has served in his current role as the assistant superintendent for the past 10 years. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you.
Great to have you all. So first off, wow, I'm so impressed. I mean, collectively, you guys have over 60 years of experience. That is amazing. I'm looking forward not only to our discussion, but to hear the feedback of the participation with the audience with us. Quickly, I want to introduce Damon, who's with us. Damon and I are with Alludo. Alludo is the learning platform, and Damon is a co-founder and also heads up our product development. So Damon's going to have a role in helping answer questions and moderate questions that are coming in through the chat. So as we are talking today with this group, feel free to ask any questions that you have, comments, and what have you. And I'm Julia. My role is I get to work with all the amazing customers. I'm over what we call customer success, and I love it because my day-to-day job is just interacting with folks like Ray and Dave and Jessica all over the country. So thanks again for joining us. This is the first webinar in a series that we have. It's innovation in education, and tonight, this afternoon, we're talking about investment in your staff and the future of teaching. And so given that, I think we can all agree the future of teaching is both very exciting and also right now very unpredictable, given circumstances and our current climate and everything that we're doing or dealing with right now. So Dave, I'm going to start questions off with you. As a district leader, what would you say are the top maybe teacher, educator challenges that you're seeing as we're kicking off this new school year?
Well, I think, I mean, on the macro level, there's the huge challenge that we as educators are literally reworking the educational system. You know, and it happened so quickly that, you know, beginning in March, we did things that we had never done before and are continuing to do things we've never done before. And it's the entire system that's been affected. So the challenge for our teachers is immense. I mean, everything that they do has changed in some way. So I think that's been the big giant challenge. And then on a more granular level, just the challenge of, as we try to support teachers and as teachers support their students, there are all these new programs that they have access to, and they have to rethink the way that they do business, in the way that they present lessons, the way that they do formative assessment, the way they gather information from their students, the way they get students to interact with material and receive feedback from them, the way they give students feedback. And so all of that has changed and is changing. And so the challenge is, how do you support that and provide teachers with professional development and access to information, while at the same time respecting their time? Because every teacher I've spoken to since March has said, everything I do takes so much longer than it ever took before. And that's, I think for all of us, we experience that same thing. Like, little things that we did as a matter of fact routinely now take lots of thought and planning and time. And so, we want to give them access to information, but at the same time, we want to respect the fact that they are so busy just trying to do the day-to-day business of delivering the best education for their students.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's probably a fine line with how much you provide support for them and how much you almost try to protect them in a way, right? From everything out there, all the different elements that are hitting them from probably all different sides, I would think. So to that point, Ray and Jessica, in your role, you spend a great deal of time with the teachers on the ground. So what challenges are you facing, particularly in your role in supporting them? And maybe what are you seeing in a typical day in the life of a classroom now for a teacher?
Well, I think very similar to what Dave is saying, we've kind of experienced the same thing, especially with our teachers. We heard a lot of feedback back in March when we first shut down, that people were kind of oversharing, and there was a lot of things coming at teachers and they were loving it, but it was almost like too much information. So in trying to figure out that balance between wanting to still provide you with information, but then making sure that we're kind of, just like teachers are being expected to do, really prioritizing and only giving the things that we have deemed essential. And that also kind of looking at our vision as a district and then moving into this online world and thinking about our district initiatives and our goals that we have, which one of these tools are going to help set teachers up for success. So just really, we had a lot of conversations around that, trying not to over Zoom, right? Since teachers were going to be on virtual kind of platforms all day long, as well as their students and administrators, everybody in our district was going to be doing this. So how could we redesign and rethink our systems for professional development? So we just spent a lot of time thinking about that too. Like when we were in the physical environment, what was really good about the professional development in terms of engagement, the information we were getting, what people liked, and could we still offer it in the same way in a virtual environment? And if we can't, how can we redesign or rethink how it's done? So just like teachers are doing, thinking about asynchronous professional development versus synchronous professional development. If we're going to meet with you, it's for a purpose, right? We need that connection. We're not going to just kind of sit and kind of have this lecture style format. We're going to engage with you. We're going to interact. We want you to be up and doing things and kind of modeling that synchronous stuff that we're expecting teachers to do. So just really trying to balance and kind of filter all the information that's going out there, especially with all the departments, right? As a district, it's not just us in Ed Services. We have all of everybody else whose needs are just as important. So we've done a lot of work too with a multi-tiered system of supports and trying to design that one system. So kind of using this too from that perspective, like what's going to be our one system to really filter and get information out to teachers so that all of us aren't bombarding teachers with the same information.
And to piggyback on that, the challenges that everyone's facing, a lot of our teachers are also parents. So they're getting hit from all sides because in California right now, we're all remote. So we're, as teachers, we're teaching remotely, and then we're trying to help our kids get on the computer, and we don't know what's happening with families. So we're really trying to lead with love and empathy and flexibility And we really didn't want to recreate what used to be. I mean, you can't do that in this situation. You just can't, whether you're remote or hybrid, it's just not going to work. And to expect, and hopefully no districts are doing this, but to expect someone to be on Zoom for, you know, a normal school day, especially with littles. I mean, that's just craziness for anyone involved. And so, you know, we had a lot of conversations about what is essential learning, what is going to make the most impact, and how can we prioritize our time, our energy, and how do we communicate that? And communication has been one of the biggest, I think, challenges for everyone, because you know, you can't see someone face to face. You can't have those quick conversations. So do you email them and then people get too many emails, so the emails get lost? Do you phone call them and then they get voicemails and they get too many voicemails? And so we've been trying to over communicate, just because in some sense, if they get some message some way, whatever way works for them, then at least they got the message. But then you worry, you know, they're like, another message from Verde. But you want them to get the message one way or another. And I think Jessica hit it on the head too. It's all about balance too, because when you're working from home and you're the teacher and you're the parent, and sometimes you're the student too, because now I'm relearning 5th grade math because I have to teach it to my kid. You know, where do you shut off? When do you shut off? Because there's no bells, there's no start and finish. You know, your day can just stretch. So, you know, those are just some of the challenges. And then who knows if family members are sick or they've lost jobs, or they've, you know, what else is going on in the family home. So, you know, it is a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a really good point, which is you, on top of your jobs day in and day out, on top of the teachers' jobs day in and day out, they also have the external factors, which is their families, their students, their illnesses, you know, everything that you have to take into consideration. It's so significant. I'm very glad, or I wish that I had a 5th grade math that I had to remember. I have a high schooler, so I'm in a lot more trouble than you are. So just in general, so when the pandemic happened, obviously there were so many different things going on. One of the things that I think was great from an education standpoint is that there was funding that was coming in to support educators. And so, but as a district, especially looking to you, Dave, in your role, and Ray and Jessica, as you influence the leadership in your district, you had to make decisions on where investments could be made, given that you had these funding sources coming in. So maybe just discuss in general, like, how did you prioritize? How did you make decisions on where smart investments could be made and be worthwhile, given all of these challenges that you're talking about?
Well, some of that was dependent on the sources and the timing of the funds. For example, you know, there was a little bit of time where it was looking like the budget was going to be terrible and we didn't have any money at all. And we were trying to figure out, we have to do all these things. We have to buy all these things. We have to get all this stuff, and we have to, you know, to make this transition, and there's no money at all. And then fortunately we were able to, you know, receive some federal money, the CARES money. And, you know, that came with a December 30th end time where it's got to all be spent. And so then that sort of entered into the picture. So there's, you know, what do we need? What do we need for physical safety? Because our students are going to be on campus at some point. They're not now, but, you know, back in June, July, there was the possibility that they were going to be, and we didn't know. So that was like the first priority. We had a committee that we developed with lots of representation to kind of talk about priorities, and the first priority and under direction from the board was to really think about physical safety and the health of our students and our staff. And then beyond that, there was achievement and learning loss from March, April, May. You know, that wasn't really distance learning. That was just survival mode for a couple of months, where our students didn't make the progress that we wanted to. And the progress that they made was really dependent on who they were and their, you know, level of access and time. And, you know, even my own family, like you, Julie, I have 2 high schoolers, and one was super involved and worked really hard, and one not so much. So, you know, and that's the experience for all of our students. So we really looked at what is it going to take to be able to assess our students, because we didn't do the assessment that we typically would have done, towards the end of the year. And we did a lot of information that we never got for our students to know how they were progressing. So we had to really look at formative assessment. We had to look at digital tools, classroom tools that teachers could use, and what did they need to be able to be successful. And a lot of that came from the teachers themselves. And they started talking about, things would well up that were really successful, like CAMI and other programs that allowed teachers to interact with students digitally in ways that they hadn't been able to do before. So we really took, starting with the physical safety and then moving to the classroom tools and the educational things that we needed for instruction, which then even created a greater need for professional development, because there's all these new programs that we, even programs like iStation that we only used for a particular group of students before, we now use for a lot more students. But a lot of our teachers didn't know anything about that program. So we had this need not only to talk about pedagogy and to provide, professional development for just the how do we instruct and gather information in this digital world now, but how do we use all these tools that suddenly we have that we didn't have before? So that was the sort of the third tier of where we targeted the bulk of our money. Was, it was physical safety, then it was classroom and learning tools and instructional tools, and then it was professional development to help our teachers to master those things and get the information they needed.
So, and do you want us to speak about us?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
From our perspective, we were trying to figure out over the summer kind of that waiting game of what are we actually going to do. But we knew no matter what, whether they were going from a hybrid or full distance learning, teachers would still need to have the capacity to really take on it, because in each situation, there was going to be some version of online learning. So our district decided to kind of invest in our teachers and we created a distance learning development team. So we partnered or brought in teachers that had already kind of been on the forefront of trying these things, or kind of, we called them influencers. So they were already kind of out there. They had worked with us on previous teams. So they already had a little bit of a skill set and capacity and some experience with this. And we put them together, and Ray and I did an initial training with them, really focusing on mindset. So our goal with our teachers was, a lot of them are good teachers and they know what good teaching is. But one of the barriers that we needed to overcome before we can move forward was the mindset of, I can't just do what I've always done. One of Joe Marquez in the Q industry group always calls it, what was it, Ray? Tidawati. Basically standing for, this is the way that we've always done it. So overcoming that, or kind of fighting that, right? So really thinking about, okay, am I doing this because this is what I've always done, or am I doing this because this is what I need to do in this new environment? So we basically had this team create models or samples. So at the beginning of the year, we wanted to also focus on our teachers creating this climate and culture. That's one thing we didn't do in the spring, was a lot of the teachers already built relationships with their students. So this time in this virtual environment, we wanted to make sure that they first started off creating a culture and a community with their class, and also helping to teach them what were expectations. So going back to our PBIS and really rethinking and redesigning what were those expectations. So a lot of our teachers in this group focused on those first 3 weeks and building that culture. Once we had them off and going, we actually had them design a webinar for their departments or their grade levels that they were supporting. And so we had basically decided to pay each one of our teachers who was interested 64 hours of extra duty before the school year even started, because we wanted them to feel success and to feel like they were ready once they reported back to kind of take on and distance learning. So we called it our learn, create, earn, and share. So basically everyone had to participate in this webinar to kind of get this mindset of, what does distance learning look like in Verde? Once they did this, then they were to work with their PLC team to start designing and creating and kind of playing with all these different tools. And then from there, they had 2 check-ins of support with those teams of teachers to kind of collaborate, get feedback, share experiences. And then once teachers reported back on the 6th, they had to actually share with the rest of their staff what they created. And so what we actually found was a lot of teachers loved it because they were like, oh, everybody else is in the same boat as me. Like, I'm struggling with this, you're struggling with this. A lot of people were thankful because teachers put in time all the time outside of their contract. And so they felt very like appreciative of the time kind of to get ready for this and to start off already having those plans in place. And they also appreciated just the support and the check-ins with the teacher leaders that we had set up because they were able to provide some guidance. But what this actually helped us with is once we kind of set up that platform or that vision, then with Trek, we have lots of teachers with different levels of capacity when it comes to technology, right? Some people are like, I'm ready to go on and above. I just need to show me the direction you need to go. And then other teachers were still struggling with how to create a Google Doc. So because of that, right, we needed some tiered supports for our teachers. And so what we love about what we've been able to do with Trek, it's here's some models of things that you can do. And here's a place in which you can go and you can get personalized learning on demand when you need it. So when we say Trek is our Alludo in our district that we kind of branded and created. So I'll let Ray talk a little bit more about kind of how that supports. So that's really helped us kind of get those needs in and not having to go backwards and try to fill in all those gaps.
Well, and the best thing about it was by allowing teachers that paid prep time before the school year. I mean, that was the best investment ever because that valued their time. They needed it. And then when we started school and we did do some PD, we did some PD with Q, we did some PD where we rolled out our Trek model and introduced it. They were actually in a space to accept it. And we felt like if we hadn't have given them that time to prep and plan and think through like, what is distance learning going to look like? They would have, what normally happens is, we have 4 days at the beginning of a school year. And the first day is they get to work in their classroom. The second day is a big PD day. And the second day, they're like, I just want to go back to my classroom because they're worried about the beginning of the school year. And we know that, but we have such limited time. This time, we felt like everybody was ready to absorb and learn and be ready for the PD. So I think that was a very strategic investment in our teachers. And now they've asked for it, and we're going to continue and it may not be extra duty pay now, but that model is going to continue. We're going to create and share, and we're going to create, go back and try a lesson, come back and share it and talk about what worked, what didn't work. And then the great thing is that is the pedagogy that Dave mentioned, right? That's the beautiful instruction that's happening. But then if they need any tech training or PD training, Trek is that mechanism where hopefully they can get it at their level, at their time, at their place, on demand.
Fantastic. I love how you incorporated all that learning across your teachers by having them do that hands-on and then sharing with each other. It's amazing. And as you're talking about just preparing for all of that in advance of coming back to the school year. So I want to segue just for a minute to talk about the success of the programs that you rolled out from an Alludo perspective. So we work with well over 100, 150 districts across the country that have launched programs on our platform like yours. I think what is unique is that you launched yours obviously in the midst of what we're dealing with today with the pandemic. And you did it from a timing perspective of right as these teachers are coming back to school. There was obviously a lot of thought and preparation in when they were coming back of when to introduce it at the right time. And because of that, I feel like that was obviously one of the key things to your success. So I want to share just a little bit of the statistics about the launch, and then I want to hand it over to Damon because I know we've got a lot of different questions coming in, and I want people to be able to have time to have their questions answered. So I'm going to share my screen here for just a minute and talk about the programs. First off is Trek. Now, so people that know the Alludo platform may know that one of the things that we allow our districts to do is to brand and theme their own programs. And so I had a blast working with Ray and Jessica and the rest of their team in developing their brand and theme, which is, again, Trek. So when people are referring to the program for training and professional learning in Verde, they're referring to Trek, which is their own program, not yet another tool that the teachers have to learn how to use. And Trek stands for Teaching, Reaching, Engaging Kids. So the launch happened in the late July timeframe. We spent a couple months over the summer discussing content and theme and what have you. The thing that was unique about Verde's Trek is it was a district-wide collaboration across 16 discrete pathways. So when you talk about the content and the breadth of what they were providing and supporting their teachers with this training program, it was very enormous in my perspective, like, and so broad and so deep and what have you to support your teachers. So everything from AVID, science and STEAM, productivity tools, classroom and instructional tools, literacy, ELD, so on and so forth. And of course, with that distance learning focus. So keeping in mind, they're launching this at the end of July as teachers are probably just starting to decompress from what they were going through March, April, May, June. And from that time period through, I think yesterday when we pulled the numbers, here's just some statistics on the activity that they've seen within their Trek PD program. So they've engaged over 1,000 teachers and educators in their district with this online PD. And of that, over 12,500 activities have been completed. And I put the plus sign because like every hour, there's more activities that are being submitted by their teachers. And when I say activities, for those of you that aren't familiar with our platform, an activity is a discrete activity that a learner does and they're bite size. So collaborating with Alludo, their team worked through, what are the things that our teachers need to know how to do? And there were activities around pedagogy and learning things around UDL. There were activities again around instructional tools. Kami was a new tool that's up and coming. Google Jamboard didn't even exist, a few months ago. So every week they're adding more activities to support the training needs of their teachers. And that equated to over 2,680 hours of PD since July. Now this is on top of everything else that they've shared with you that they've been doing with their teachers. So I guess when you look at this, Ray and Jessica, how do you measure success both within a program like this as well as the other things that you are doing for your teachers for PD and that investment that you're making?
Well, what strikes me about this is we were very cautious about how we presented this, and we know teachers have a lot on their plate, and none of this is mandatory. This is none of this. This is all on teachers' own time as they feel like they need it. And we have done our first challenge for some prizes. So we're trying to motivate, not mandate, and have some fun with it. But seeing these numbers, I mean, that just makes me giggle because it shows me that sometimes when you don't mandate things, the results are even better than when you do. If I told them they had to do 6 activities, they would have done, okay, I'll do the 6 activities. But now they're getting the learning they need, hopefully. And we had so much fun with the Trek modeling. I mean, we did it after a little play off of Star Trek. It's upside down to represent our V. I mean, and we're having so much fun. I'm sending out memes. I don't know if the teachers actually like it, but I do. I'm sending out Star Trek memes all the time, learn long and prosper. It's just trying to have fun while trying to learn, while trying to motivate. And I mean, I'm astonished by these numbers. I need this slide. I have to show it to everybody else because none of this is mandatory.
That's good to hear. Good to hear. And Jessica, from your perspective, maybe you can speak a little bit to the breadth, how broad you went in the content that you wanted to include in your program, and have you received any feedback, heard again in your role, because you guys are hands-on on the ground, are you hearing any feedback about usage and support for your teachers?
So I laugh at that because I know as we were creating this with Julia, she's always like, well, you guys have a lot compared to everybody else in your game. And we're like, yeah, we know, we take on a lot here at Verde. But I guess from the beginning, we wanted to make sure that this really helped to support our district initiatives, and it wasn't going to just feel like we were doing something just because of the situation that we were in. So really, again, starting to build that system where as we start to do PD, this is kind of our one-stop shop for PD, no matter what district initiative it is, what department it is, anything. So right now, currently, all of our instructional aides have access to this, our impact subs, our substitutes, our teachers. So we're really trying to make sure that this is kind of speaking to as many people as possible. So because at this point in time, everyone plays a very crucial role in helping our students, even parents. So I know someone brought up assessments in the chat about how are we helping, getting assessments out there and ideas for that. So at this point, we're still kind of trying to figure it all out, but creating that shared vision and purpose with all of our stakeholders and making sure everybody understands what the purpose is for everything we're doing right now. And so especially internally, making sure everybody that's working with students has a place to go if they need help, especially with all the different platforms that teachers use. And, we have Google Classroom, Seesaw, and, just to name a few. So we've gotten actually a lot of feedback. And so we asked some of our top players, especially, what were some of the things. One of the teachers says that this actually opened their eyes. They didn't realize how many digital tools they actually had their fingertips on. And so now they're super excited because they've kind of been able to own their own learning and go in when they needed it. So to me, it's like laying breadcrumbs. Sometimes we kind of just force it or we do a spray and pray because it's what we need and it's what in our capacity we're able to do. In this situation, in trying to prioritize, we don't have that luxury to kind of pull everybody for an all call, get them the PD that they need. So this is like laying breadcrumbs. Like, here it is, when you need it, come and kind of play in it as you need to. And then as people get more and more into it, they start to see how it can be helpful. So that's been a lot of our feedback. A lot of people we're very competitive, friendly competitive in our district. So some people, I remember I didn't know how to turn my notifications off, and I was getting notified at 2 o'clock in the morning that so-and-so just completed level 1. So people are on this at all hours of the night. And I think that's what's really nice is, just like we want students to kind of own their own learning and know how to access and kind of advocate for what they need, we want teachers to be able to do the same. And so if you need this at this time, no matter what topic it is, here it is when you need it on demand. And so really leading with that personalized learning. And so that's some of the feedback that we received so far.
That's wonderful, thank you. And then Dave, so switching now to Harupa. So you as a decision maker had to decide when you got to that third tier, after safety in the classroom and then professional learning, okay, now I have investment that I need to make. And at one point you decided, okay, we're going to explore this idea of self-directed and online. And obviously online makes a lot of sense right now, given the circumstances that we're in, and we can't do the in-person PD that we used to do. I'll also share a little bit of background on the engagement that we did with Harupa. So I think we started in the early July timeframe. I joke because I think it is one of the programs that we got up and running in the shortest amount of time. I think it was literally about 2 or 3 weeks when we started working with your team to when we went live, which was August 4th. And what Dave and team decided to do, and I'll let you speak to more detail about it, was to offer a stipend to your teachers. So back again to investment in their learning and the future for teaching. There was a focus on distance learning, but it wasn't limited to that. It also was broad, like Verde, not as broad as Verde, but broad, and also huge success. So after launching on August 4th, similar size in terms of districts, there was a little over 1,000 educators who completed over 17,250 activities, and there are over 4,200 hours of PD. So I'm not sure who was reviewing all the evidence and approving in your system, Dave, but your teachers were keeping them obviously very busy. So maybe speak a little bit to the decision on making that investment, and now seeing some of these results. Hopefully you're happy about that investment, but where and how do you see that impacting your teachers, forward for this year?
Yeah, first I need to say I'm going to need that slide too, because that's fantastic. It's very exciting. We were in a similar position where we had been offering a lot of PD from beginning in March and all the way through the summer, and it was complex and it was difficult, and we know when we think about good quality professional development, it's always a challenge to figure out how do you meet the learner, the adult learner, at their level and move them forward and give them valuable information. And the old days of one size fits all, everybody gets a sub, everybody sits in a room and everybody gets the same PD, it just doesn't work. And that's only multiplied when it comes to technology and distance learning. I mean, the variance among our teachers and their level and their needs are so vastly different that we knew we needed something robust and something with a lot of options. We had already begun doing something we called Summer Jam, where we were taking our teachers and they were presenting in the use of tools and digital learning. And this has been going on for a couple of years, and we have a few hundred teachers that would attend on their own time in the summer during their summer vacation, which was exciting. And so we modified that, and now we call it Quarantine Jam. And so we unveiled the JUSD path with Alludo at Quarantine Jam, which was the week before teachers were to come back. But we had some 250 teachers that were there, and I had kind of started the day before, and I'd earned about 100 points because I wanted to be able to say, I'm the leader right now. Look, everybody passed me. And I think I made the announcement to the teachers at the Quarantine Jam. It was another Zoom event or Google Meets, and within an hour, somebody had passed me, and they never looked back. It was very exciting. But going back to the how and the why of the investment, we wanted it to be voluntary. This is completely voluntary. We wanted it to be available to all of our teachers, to all of our classified staff members, and to all of our instructional leaders, our managers as well. So we knew we needed something with a wide variety of content, and we had a lot of content that we have developed, but we're not a big district. Our technology department, we have 2 teachers on special assignment that do the bulk of the training, and 1 coordinator of technology. So there aren't a lot of folks to do things, and they do phenomenal things. But when they said, when I was able to get permission that we could move forward with this stipend for teachers, for all staff, they said, we really need to use Alludo because it will provide this system of incentives and it's gamified and it's got content. And I was a little worried at first because I didn't want the beginning of a system to get in the way of getting this going right now, because our teachers' needs they're immediate. So I was so excited that, like you said, we launched pretty darn fast, and got it done really quickly. And so we really liked the fact that there was a lot of content already available through Alludo, and that we could add all of our content too. So we wanted pedagogy, we wanted classroom tools, we wanted social emotional learning, we wanted things that our paraprofessionals could have access to as well, because man, our teachers are growing, but our instructional assistants, our bilingual language tutors, those paraprofessionals are growing by leaps and bounds because they're now having to be supporting students digitally as well. And so this gave our teachers the opportunity to work with paraprofessionals and give them good suggestions for the learning that they could engage in. And they also had access to the stipend. So it has been super well received. We get a lot of feedback, whether it's good or bad. And I can say that the feedback around this path has been overwhelmingly positive. And it's from those that would typically give full positive feedback and those that would typically give critical feedback. They all have said, we love the size of the activities. We love the ability to access them whenever we want. We love the gamification it makes it kind of interesting and fun. It's been really well received, and those numbers are very exciting because things have been so busy. I've looked to see how many hours we had going on, so it's great to see those numbers.
Great, thank you. We appreciate the feedback, the positive feedback for sure. And at this point, I definitely want to hand it over to Damon because I know we've got some good questions out there that folks want to hear your responses to. So Damon, I'm going to hand it over to you. You want to start with some questions?
Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you all. We've got some great questions out there, and one of them, and I think this is very, very timely question, is special ed. So Carla asked, as a special ed teacher of moderate to severe, there are many issues involved in teaching online, but assessing my students has been the hardest. Do any of you have tips on how you can manage assessment of students and assessment in the special ed area in particular?
I think a few of the things that we have done, and these are pretty general suggestions, but there have been some programs like Pear Deck and Cami that have allowed our students, and how applicable that might be for a teacher who's teaching students with moderate to severe difficulties or disabilities, I'm not sure, but that's been one of the areas that we've found a lot of success in, is with formative assessment using those particular programs. In addition, we have a math fluency program that we've used with our students with disabilities. And so that was something that typically was a series of math games that our teachers did in the classroom. And obviously they can't do those because they're very hands-on, manipulative based. So we took a group of our teachers and classified staff, and they were able to develop games that mirrored what the teachers were doing, where we could send that packet home and those manipulatives home, and so that parents would have the ability to play those games with their students and build that math fluency and conceptual knowledge in a way that the teacher wasn't able to do digitally. That's one suggestion.
Dave, I really like that idea because sometimes we get stuck into, because we're distance learning, everything has to be digital, and by no means does it. Low-tech options are always just as equally valid. And I've had the pleasure of getting to witness, I don't have a fifth grader, I have a junior, and she goes to high school in my school. And I've got to witness her classes, some of her classes, and the great thing teachers do with her, but I've also got to witness Jessica's littles. She, God bless her soul, has a kindergartner and a first grader. And so on Wednesdays, she brings her kiddos to the district office, and I get to witness what happens in those classes too. And one of the things I've seen her first grade teacher, Brindley's teacher, do is have the students they have Chromebooks, just ease the Chromebook down a little. You can't see my hand. Ease the Chromebook down a little bit, and the student put whatever they're working on in front of the camera. And so they're not looking at their face, they're looking at their work. And I just thought, what a brilliant idea. It's if you're doing something with manipulatives, if you're doing something where you're wanting to see what they're writing, if you're doing something, then the student and the teacher are looking at the work, not the face of the kid. And that is one way you could do a low-tech version of something that isn't as, if the student doesn't need to type, and you're just wanting to do a different type of testing. And so I just thought that was a genius way. It's so simple, just half mask the Chromebook, and now you can see what the kiddo's working on. And Carla, I hear you. She's from our district. She's an awesome teacher. And, on top of everything else, the kiddos have learning problems. And so now, and now the parent has to be the learning coach as well. And so when you can, I know she brings in the parent, but I know we've also tried to work with our schedule so that you can do what we call campfire groups. So you're not working with all of your students at the same time, like we used to do. I'm a recovering high school English teacher. I would always have 38 students in my classroom. If I were in the classroom today, in my 90-minute, we did block scheduling, in my 90-minute block, I might have all my kiddos at the beginning, but then I might split up my time. And if, and Carla, I don't know what you've tried. I'm sure you've tried a lot, but maybe you split them up even more. So you're dealing less and less kids. So when you're assessing, you are only doing 2 or 5 or whatever is manageable. And I'm sure, and maybe only a couple a day, just because the assessments is probably, I believe you, it's probably a lot.
Okay, super. So kind of building on top of that, there were a few questions kind of geared towards life for the new realities for parents. So how are you supporting parents that all of a sudden are at home, they're dealing with kids in a way that they had never had to deal with before? All of the things that have been dealt with in the classroom and in districts and that sort of thing, and now a lot of that's being kind of onboarded onto parents. So what are some of the things that you're doing to support parents on this remote learning journey?
You know, for us, especially, we've spent a lot of time really looking at best practices for K2, especially since the parent is, you know, they're going to help out in many of the ways, but K2, you really are going to need some help, especially with those little kindergartners. A lot of the teachers have a one-stop shop for communication. So like if anything, I have a Facebook page or a website. So if I have a question, I have resources. If I want to check to see what's supposed to be happening this week, they put awards out there, all that kind of stuff. It's like their virtual classroom. The other thing is just trying to also a lot of our sites are doing evening hours. So with some of the funds that we've been able to get to support parents, offering evening hours to do tech questions, especially with Zoom. A lot of people just even getting access onto Zoom and how to manipulate it. So a lot of our sites are creating parent workshops around that. The other thing is I know in a lot of our teachers are using kind of the Google slide deck option where there's like a slide per day with all the different activities that kids are going to be doing. They're trying to be consistent in the icons. So if you're supposed to click on something, it's the same icon used. If I'm supposed to watch a video, what would that icon be? So kids can use it, right? There's directions and they're translated. So in case there is a parent help and they need a different language, that's an option. But then also there's usually sometimes a slide at the beginning of the week or when they first started that basically has tutorial videos. So when I ask you to do this is what it looks like from your end, or here's how you can support parents. So a lot of our teachers have been really trying to, you know, spend time working with parents. I know a lot of them, I know from experience, teachers meeting with you to make sure you understand what's going on, or if there is assessment that's happening, you know, kind of just going over the role. Like if you help your kid, the purpose of this assessment is for me to find out what needs and what I need to help with your student. So if you help them, we all have that need to want to help our kid, especially when they're right there and they're struggling. You're like, no. But if you step in and you help them, then I'm as a teacher, I'm not able to support them where they need to. So just trying to work with parents and make sure that they understand the role. And then like Ray said, just being very forgiving, right? If things are not done maybe to the exception or you know, what you would normally expect, or if it takes a little bit longer to get something turned in, just really working because it's new for everybody.
And I had put it in the chat, but you know, we have to over communicate. We don't know what way is going to work for a family. I said it earlier, we're, you know, we do all the traditional methods, but one thing we're real big on in Verde is social media, just because that seems to meet, you know, everybody's on it. And we do a lot of celebrations on social media so that it's not all, you know, we're not communicating with parents just to tell them bad news, right? It's good news, it's celebrations. We have a lot of spirit. You know, we post whatever we can, but we also post a lot of information. We created, at the beginning of this, we created a parent website. We've created a YouTube channel with a lot of videos in Spanish and English for our families. We have a guidebook. And then our superintendent makes videos that we send out to the family. We email them. We also post them on our website. And we've started to stream everything so that when we have meetings, we've started task force meetings. We put them on Facebook Live. They respond to the chat questions. Our board meetings are now on Facebook Live, which we love because now we can really be a part of them. They can go quite long, and if you had to stay now, I mean, Zoom has offered some opportunities, or you know, the social media aspect has offered some opportunities, but always with that understanding, like Jessica mentioned. The teacher and the educator part of us understanding that families are gonna maybe have different needs and our expectations might have to be different. We don't know if the family works all day and then has to come home and do all the homework, you know, all the schoolwork at night because they were gone. And so, you know, you have to be flexible with your due dates and your times. Just that love and empathy and flexibility going through everything that we communicate.
I think many of those same strategies, the use of over communicating videos for parents, one of the clear messages we got from parents over the summer in our surveys was that when we, in March, April, May, we had teachers use whatever learning management system was most comfortable to them. And that was difficult for our parents and for our high school students because they might have one child with multiple systems or multiple children with multiple systems. So we standardized around Power School Learning. So parents had one place where they were able to get all the information, and we have a parent tab in each page that has access to the things that they need. We have lots of videos for how you do this or how you do that. You talked about being forgiving. We call it giving people grace, because it's hard everywhere right now, and we've been big on that. And then many of our schools, and soon all of our schools, have set up during the day a Google Meet office hour staffed by a school staff member. So no matter what goes wrong, parents or students have a link that they can access a person to get directed to where they could get the help that they need, whether it's often it's trouble with logins or passwords or things like that, or bandwidth, all those kinds of things. So they have a place they can go each day, no matter what happens. And teachers have found that gets kids back in really quickly when things go wrong, and they can say, what do I do? What do I do? And get the help that they need. I think that's been a big help. And then another, we've had to do a lot of work. This was something new and out of the blue with childcare providers. Many of our families go to work. And so we have a lot of kids who attend childcare. We have a lot of childcare providers whose lives have changed dramatically. And so we've had to help them with, how do I support these kids in distance learning? And can you get me some more bandwidth? Because now I have 8 kids who are all in video lessons at the same time. And we've been giving away like desk giveaways, and there's so much that we have to do for our families now because they need it. The help is needed. So
that is a wonderful answer to that question, and a nice bookend. So thank you, Dave. Julia, I'm going to turn it over to you to wrap it up.
Yeah.
I think we're almost at
Yeah,
time.
we're wrapping up the hour. We could probably talk for another half hour or more. Just great ideas, great feedback, valuable insight. We truly thank you for being a part of it and joining us for our first webinar. And I want to thank the people in the audience. Brought on some amazing questions and the different perspectives. So thank you so much. As a token of our appreciation, again, to kick off our inaugural series, you'll each be getting a fun little Ludo of your own. So that'll be coming in the mail soon. I'd love to deliver it in person, but not this time. So thank you all for joining us. Have a great evening. And Ray, Jessica, Dave, thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.